Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm John Barban, and I want to talk about the Cleveland Browns QB room situation and why they might have taken two QBs this year, but only in the fourth and fifth round, and what the strategy might actually be. And I think the whole thing revolves around what may or may not happen with the Deshaun Watson contract. So if you look at the QBs they have in the room right now, the amount of money spent is very low. The Shedeur contract is only for about 4.5 million, something like that, and a nominal amount of that is guaranteed. I think it's just the signing bonus. Same with Dillon Gabriel. His contract is, I think, 6 million total over 4 years. And again, these both are over the 4-year rookie deal. And that, I think the guarantee there might be maybe a million in signing bonus, something like that. Kenny Pickett's is a 1-year deal for 2.6 million. All of it's guaranteed. And then Joe Flacco's deal is something like 3 or 4 million, maybe 3 million guaranteed. And then incentives that could go all the way to 13 million. But I don't know the specifics, but I'm sure that includes some significant milestones, probably getting deep into the playoffs and throwing a bunch of touchdowns and things like that. So it's not likely Flacco's, if he plays, it's not likely they're going to pay him 13 million. It's probably a lot closer to the 4. So if you view it that way, all in, the amount of money committed to QBs that could play, I'm considering Watson is not being able to play at all, but that could play, is 4 million-ish to Flacco, 2.6 to Kenny Pickett. So that's what, 6.6, and call it another 1.5 million between Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. So that's something around 8 million-ish committed this year between 4 QBs. So that's really, really cheap, and none of it is guaranteed past this year. They could cut Gabriel and Sanders anytime they want. Pickett's 1 year and Flacco's 1 year. So I think this all revolves around the money remaining on Watson's contract, which is something in order of 92 million-ish. But if you've been paying attention to any of these reports, there is potential for an insurance claim that could save the Browns up to $58-ish million. But the key thing there is that these are provisions written into his contract, I guess addendums to the contract. But the key thing there, and to recover that much money, he'd have to miss the entire 2025 season. And that would be missing the season would have been due to injury sustained while football, something to do with football injuries, which you can prove that was the case. So, but they don't know if they're going to recover this money. The other thing is they can't know if they're going to be able to recover that money until the end of this season, until the end of the 2025 season. They may be able to recover a smaller portion of it for all the time he's already missed. The time he missed in 2024, they may already be eligible to claim some of that money. But the big chunk would be almost 45 million owed to him in 2025 if he misses the whole season. And the terms of that contract, and it fulfills the terms of the insurance contract, they may recover close to $60 million. But again, they don't know that till the end of the 2025 season. So bringing this all the way around back to why they just took 2 quarterbacks on the cheap way later in the draft instead of taking a quarterback right away. It could have just been that they just didn't have Sanders graded that high, and that's that. Or it could have been they were never spending first round money on a QB in this draft because they have a almost $60 million question mark with the salaries associated with their QB room that cannot be answered until the end of this season. So from a purely business standpoint, if you're the GM of this team and you already have $45 million committed to Watson this year and next year, so not 92 remaining, and then another 20 something the year after that. But you could recover if he doesn't play this year due to football related injuries. I think maybe even injuries off the field, but for sure football related injuries that they can prove happened within the terms of the contract and the insurance contract. You could potentially be paying out 90 million more without any relief, or 90 million more with 60 million in relief. Again, we're talking about just the money allocated to the QB room. We're not talking about the rest of the team. That would really change the way you think your way through how much money you're going to potentially spend on prospects this year in the draft. So I think maybe they've just made a really smart move, hedging their bets by taking two of the better QBs that were available this year out of whatever you would consider this year's class of QBs. One of them, Sanders, which a lot of people thought was the number 2 QB, so you got him anyways, and you got him super cheap. And you don't know till the end of this season if you're going to have an extra $60 million or not, based on if the insurance policy pays out or not. So I think they're angling for the number 1 QB next year, as evidenced by the fact that they got the Jaguars' number 1 pick, first round pick next year. So depending on how the Browns and the Jaguars finish up, they could have 2 this year. They could have 2 really, really high first round picks, which essentially, and they have, I think, 9 total picks next year. And they own their own picks through rounds 1 through 5. So with 2 first round picks and a pick in each of the first 5 rounds, they theoretically control the draft next year and could trade away enough draft capital to arrive in the number 1 position if Arch Manning comes out, and let's say Arch Manning balls out this year and he comes out and he's the decided number 1 pick, they're in a position to go get him. Or let's say Garrett Nussmeier comes through and LSU just crushes it again, and he's the next Heisman winner from LSU, following in the steps of Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels. So, and this next year's draft class is considered to be deeper with more potential talent. We have to see how they play on the field here, but even if you consider the namesake of Arch Manning and how big of a deal that might be to get him on your team in the NFL. So it's not, we don't know who's going to have the first overall pick. It could very well be a team that doesn't need the first pick for a QB. If it's one of these teams that's just recently taken a QB, I don't know. The Jaguars could actually finish with the worst record this year, or the Browns, and they just have that pick anyways. Or the Bears could have a crappy year. The Patriots could have a crappy year. I don't think so, but it could be a number of teams who aren't in the game for QB this coming year. But regardless, if there's 2 or 3 QBs that look like a franchise type QB beyond whatever was available this year, because this was considered a weak QB class, they could just be playing their cards close to the vest right now, and probably can't say any of this publicly. Again, I'm just speculating, but if you just look at the numbers, they have a $60 million question mark as it pertains to money allocated to the QB room. And that's whether or not the insurance contract on Deshaun Watson's deal comes through and pays out or not, based on the injuries. And the whole key there is you don't know till the end of the 2025 season how much it might pay out, because it's dependent on how much or how little he plays in the 2025 season. So it would seem to be irresponsible from a business standpoint to make a large financial investment in the QB room without really knowing how much money is allocated to the QB room next year. And if it was a couple million one way or another, like let's say it was a QB whose contract was coming to an end and it was, I don't know, 10 million still owing, and you don't know if it's 10 million more or 10 million less if he's on the team or not. Here it's $60 million that may be recovered or may not be recovered. That's a huge decision to make. And given that they just fell flat on their face with the Deshaun Watson contract, and give Jimmy Haslam credit, the owner came out and said it was a swing and a miss, and he owned that. He owned that one. He didn't put it on the GM, on Barry. But given that they just made a monumental mistake signing a quarterback, it would look kind of dumb on them, or maybe they're sensing it would be hasty to spend first round money on a QB this year, not knowing if you're recovering 60 million or not next year. But if you recover the 60 million, let's say it works out and the insurance policy pays out, and they recover, and Watson doesn't play at all in 2025, and they recover what the reports suggest are upwards of $60 million. Now, and you have 2 first-round draft picks, which means you likely can manipulate your way into one of the top 2 picks. And let's just say, again, I'm painting a scenario that a bunch of things have to go right, but let's say Nussmeier and Arch Manning both ball out and they just look amazing this year, and their consensus 1-2, 2-1, who, and everyone would be happy, and they look like franchise quarterback caliber players. Well, they're in a much better position to commit first round money next year if they recover the $60 million. If they don't, they're still in this lousy position where another $46 million is going out to Deshaun Watson, and they're not really in a position to sign a $40 million contract again on a rookie, which is still a guess. You never really know if they're going to work out. Just because they're highly rated out of college doesn't mean they're going to work. Like the Titans, yeah, they have Ward. That doesn't mean it's going to work. He could be a total bust. We don't know. And I think optically the Browns would look like utter fools signing someone this year to first round money, not knowing if they're going to recover $60 million or not. And if they don't recover it, they're going to sign a guy to first round money while they still owe Watson $92 million more. And if this guy doesn't work out, whoever it is this year, if they sign someone to the first round money, they look even dumber because now they're paying money for Watson who doesn't play, and they just took a first round draft pick and paying that guy whatever it is, $30-40 million, and if he doesn't work, now they're paying all that money for quarterbacks that don't work. At least this way, they still got what a lot of people thought was the consensus number 2 pick, Shedeur Sanders, for peanuts, for $4 million. And if he works, great. And it's fiscally responsible. It fits no matter if they recover the $60 million next year or not. If they recover the $60 million and either Gabriel or Sanders looks good, they look really smart. They kind of did the Brock Purdy thing. They stole a really good quarterback for really, really cheap. But if he doesn't work out, optically, it's not going to look bad because they spent no money on these guys anyways. And if the insurance contract comes through and they recover all of that money and they get some relief to that disastrous Watson deal, then they've put themselves in a position for next year where 2 potential seriously good candidates are coming out, and may potentially more. I mean, Carson Beck might turn out. I don't know about Kate Klubnik. Some people are talking about it. Lenora Sellers could have a great year, and he could be really intriguing. So there's a few that might come out that people might agree make up a better class than this year's class. So it's a better risk to spend true first round money on a QB next year than this year. But again, they took what a lot of people thought was the second best QB this year and they got him for peanuts. So it all lines up to me that all of this revolves around whether or not Watson plays at all this year and whether or not it satisfies the conditions of the insurance policy that would then award them almost $60 million payback. But again, they can't know that till the end of the season, which makes their next year's offseason a hugely pivotal year based on the finances of the QB room. Because I highly doubt if that doesn't come through, I highly doubt they wanted to have committed first round money to a guy this year and still pay all that money out to Watson. Now I get it. They can constantly restructure Watson's contract and stretch it out, but that just still eats into your cap space. And I know the cap goes up, but the bottom line is you're either paying out $60 million somehow, or you're not paying out $60 million somehow, no matter how you restructure it. So it makes way more sense to find out, are we on the hook for $60 million more or less next year? And if the insurance pays out, they're in way better position next year to make a commitment to a quarterback with first round money and not look like fools by falling flat on their face again if it doesn't work. So I don't know. That's my read on it now. When you really think your way through how much money's allocated to the QB room and how this year's allocation is pretty cheap and it all ends this year, and that insurance policy we find out at the end of this season if it pays out. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I off base here, Cleveland fans or anybody? What do you guys think? In the end, I think I think they did this exactly right because they got what people think's the second best QB for super cheap anyways this year. All right, catch you later.